Hi, I'm back again for chapter 2. I just hope that you will like this, okay? So here it is. Beginning to see the light, chapter 2. Night. Once the lights from the lampshades placed on the other side of the bed were turned on, they immediately tagged the blankets to cover their naked bodies from one another. Who the fuck are you? Blaine exclaimed as he stood up and grabbed a pillow to cover his crouch. Oh god! Oh god, oh god! Kurt repeated as he scrambled to the bedside and put on his eyeglasses. Oh god! You're not Chandler! Oh god! You're not Chandler! Kurt shouted. I don't know who you're talking about! Blaine shouted back. I don't even know you! Oh god! Kurt continued his mantra, ignoring Blaine's outburst. You took advantage of me, Kurt accused Blaine. Whoa, stop right there. Blaine panicked and walked in front of Kurt. I didn't rape you! Kurt scrambled back to the bed, distancing himself from Blaine. Stop, please, stop, please. He begged as he raised his right palm in front of Blaine and his left hand to tighten his hold of the blanket. Blaine wanted to make a surrender gesture, but his hands were full with the pillow he was clutching. He picked up his boxers and polo shirts from the floor on the other side of the bed. He turned around from Kurt and dropped the pillow. Oh god, you're bought! He heard Kurt yell in between his frantic breathing. Blaine rolled his eyes and quickly put on his clothes, leaving the polo unbuttoned. He turned around and wanted to demand the naked man to leave his room. But upon seeing him shaking and gasping for air, he tried to compose his panic and decided to approach him in a calm way. I won't come near you, Blaine calmly said. I'll stay in this spot and let's talk about this, okay? Blaine mentally patted himself for putting cool exterior in this situation. Okay, deep breaths. In and out, he instructed as he slowly approached the bed. Kurt, sensing the warmth in Blaine's voice, obliged. As the breathing slowly calmed down, Blaine sat on the foot of the bed and faced Kurt. Now, don't panic. I'm not gonna hurt you. We'll just talk. Alright? He instructed, and when he saw Kurt give a small nod, he continued. What's your name? Kurt gave Blaine a doubtful look. Look, I need the name of the person I just had sex with. Blaine saw Kurt flinch when the word sex was released from his mouth. I'm not going to hurt you. I just think it's better to address you with your name rather than nameless dick that I labeled you with. Kurt, the pale boy muttered under his breath. Kurt Hummel, he added. Now Kurt, he started but was cut off when Kurt raised his hand. He frowned at his strange behavior, but dismissed it immediately. He flicked his wrist towards Kurt as a gesture to go on. Can you turn around? He asked. I want to put some clothes first. He blushed to his request. Blaine, seeing Kurt's reddening face, turned around and dramatically put his right hands to his eyes. Better? Thank you, Kurt said as he hurriedly put his clothes on. You can turn around now. Blaine waited for another question, but Kurt remained quiet. Now, Kurt, what are you doing here in my room? He asked, also confused with the situation they were stuck with. Kurt wanted to tell him that it was his room, but when he glanced at the hotel's phone beside him, the word Room 206 was engraved on it. He was confused for a moment, but when he backtracked his steps last night, he remembered everything. I'm such an idiot. I should have checked. I should have not taken too many pills. He berated himself internally. I, uh, I, I took some pills, B. He was cut off by Blaine's outburst. You'll tell them I drugged you? Blaine snickered. All warmth in Blaine's voice was gone and replaced with his cold and frantic attitude. Shit! He stood from where he was sitting. I should have listened to Sam. I should have been cautious of my actions, he said as he paced around the room. Um, Kurt muttered and confused about Blaine's outburst. How much did they pay you? Blaine ignored how Kurt snapped his head to look at Blaine. What company are you from? Is Chandler your boss? Are you here to sabotage my career? He asked Kurt and started to walk towards the closet. He took his checkbook from his suitcase and turned towards Kurt. How much? He asked and saw Kurt's face, tears leaking from his eyes. No, I don't. I'm not. Kurt tried to explain between sobs, realizing what Blaine was implying. No, I'm really. Blaine rolled his eyes and opened his checkbook. Drop the act, okay? He demanded. Stop pretending that I took advantage of you. I know you are here to make a scandal and ruin my company. I won't. I really. He was cut off by Blaine's shout. I tried staying calm to fix this, so just tell me how much they paid you, and I'll triple it, before I get impatient here and sue you for fraud and rape, he said with a gruff voice. But Blaine was internally panicking now as he pictured the company's condition if the scandal were to be released to the media. Let's settle this before it get out of proportion. Understood? Blaine said and took a pen from the hotel desk. No, I really am not. I'm just. Kurt breathed deeply and tried composing himself. Then explain to me what the hell are you doing in my room? I was sick and took some pills. Kurt scratched his nose to concentrate in his thoughts. Someone helped me get in here when I fell down in the hallway. They mistook your hotel room as mine. Yeah, like I'll believe that. Blaine scoffed. Please believe me, Kurt pleaded, but Blaine ignored him. I really am sorry, he sobbed in the blankets. Don't try getting out of here when I threaten you with imprisonment, he said as he wrote his checkbook. Is $2,000 enough? Or did that Chandler guy pay you higher than this? He looked up to Kurt as he asked for the question. Oh God, Chandler! Kurt shouted and rushed to exit the room. Oi! Don't get away from me! Blaine yelled and ran after Kurt, fleeing back. But he tripped on the blanket that was tousled in his feet. Shit! He yelped as he untangled himself from the massive blanket that was hurriedly thrown by Kurt. Kurt rushed out of the room and slammed his body into the door of the next room. Chandler! He said as he continuously pressed the doorbell of room 205. Chan, I'm sorry, I didn't know, I'm so sorry. His chant was disrupted when the door opened, but it wasn't his boyfriend who answered the door. Oh God, I'm so sorry again, I mistook this room as mine. He started backing up to look for his and Chandler's room, but his arm was grabbed by the man. No, honey, this is your room, and your man is in the shower. The man used his thumb to point to the room behind him. Kurt vaguely remembered him as the blonde guy that Chandler was flirting with last night. Sorry, sweet chicks, I exhausted your man last night. The blonde guy mocked Kurt. But don't worry, he can still be fucked for round 4, he said as he lightly patted Kurt's face. Is all yours now? Thanks for sharing. He smirked and bumped Kurt's shoulder. making Kurt face the room that he was in before, and continued walking away from the room. Kurt made no move to return to his previous position and saw Blaine, who was staring at him while standing outside his own room. Kurt's face was drowning with tears, but no sounds were coming out from his mouth. He was left there in a trance, and his eyes were looking straight at Blaine's. But no real recognition from Kurt's eyes were detected, only pain and sorrow. Blaine saw another guy wearing a white robe coming out from the room that Kurt was standing in front of. "So you met Jenkins," the golden brownish haired guy said as he leaned on the doorway, looking at Kurt's back. "Now you know my taste in men." He smirked and crossed his arms. "Why, Chandler?" Kurt asked, struggling to keep his voice upright. "What do you mean, why?" Chandler asked incuriously. "Have you seen yourself?" Kurt subtly glanced at himself. "You are fucking boring as hell. You're dull, ugly, and stupid." Every insult Chandler muttered struck Kurt's heart. "I only put up with you because you do my work for me," Chandler said with fake sympathy. "Oh yeah! Forgot to thank you for the project you submitted for me." He remembered. "I got promoted for that," he said and patted Kurt's back. Kurt continued his silent crying and gripped the front of his thighs, leaving red marks from his fingernails. "You're so stupid and obviously in love with me. Have you not wondered why neither my friends nor my family knows about you? Or why I keep our relationship in the office a secret?" Chandler was obviously met with silence. "Because you are just a tool for me, something I used when you wanted entertainment, and you were fun to play with at first. But it's boring now because you always just nod and follow me like a lost puppy." He laughed and leaned his head in the doorway. "You were sick last night and I'm not worried about you at all. The only feeling that I felt about you last night was excitement, and it wasn't from the image of my cock plunged into your virginal ass, but because you weren't here, and I could use the room as a fuck nest." He groaned from the memories of last night. He approached Kurt's back and leaned towards Kurt and gripped his shoulders. "Your presence on Earth is a waste. So even if you die today," he chuckled darkly in Kurt's ear. "No one will give a fuck," he said and stressed each phrase. Blaine could not believe what he was seeing. Kurt was just standing still while this Chandler, his boyfriend not boss, insulted him repeatedly. He felt guilty for accusing Kurt of sleeping with him for money, and mistaking him as his rival's ploy to destroy him. He wanted to turn around and go back to his room and leave the couple with their own business. But as he glanced at Kurt's trembling state and in his eyes, he groaned and shouted towards Kurt. "I'm gonna regret this later. Stupid conscience! It wasn't really my fault when he ended up in the wrong room and sleeping with the wrong guy." Blaine thought to himself as he started a battle with his own subconscious. Blaine inhaled deeply and groaned mentally. "Hey, baby," he said coolly and yanked Kurt from Chandler's grip. He put his hand on the back of Kurt's head and kissed him hard. When Kurt didn't respond to the kiss, he slightly parted their lips away and whispered, "I'm saving your ass here, so cooperate." He kissed Kurt again and used his other hand to grab Kurt's ass and squeeze it, waking Kurt from his trance. He parted Kurt's lips with his teeth and plunged his tongue to Kurt's mouth, eliciting a loud moan from Kurt. He parted their lips with a smack and pushed Kurt's head on his shoulder. "You see, the breakup wasn't that so hard." he said to Kurt loudly, forcing Chandler to listen to his words. Don't let the guilt of having hot and heavy sex with me last night and cheating with your boyfriend keep us apart, he said while cradling Kurt's face. Don't cry and be guilt-ridden, he pecked Kurt's lips. Stop shaking, I'll handle this. Stay calm, he whispered to Kurt's ears. Blaine looked up and addressed Chandler. I'm sorry, Charlie. I didn't mean to fall in love with your boyfriend the first time I laid my eyes on Kurt. He mistook his name intentionally. I really tried stopping myself from pursuing him, he lied. I really did. He grabbed Kurt's ass and molested it in front of Chandler. But I just can't resist him. He made a fake groan. And he smirked when he saw Chandler's starstruck face. What? What the hell just happened? Chandler said as he glanced towards Kurt and then back to Blaine. It's just Kurt was the most fun, amazing, beautiful, and intelligent man I have ever met. Blaine struggled to remember the insults he had heard earlier and turned them into compliments. He means the world to me, he added while caressing Kurt's cheeks with his thumbs. And after last night, as we fucked to oblivion. He emphasized the word fuck just because he could. I cannot let him return to you. He made a mental happy dance when he saw Chandler's jaw drop. Chandler shook his head. You know what? Just go. Weird people only deserve weird people. You're probably just another poor freak whose targets are boys with pale faces, like him. He spat disgustingly. Even with the height difference, Blaine tried to round his arms to Kurt's shoulders, engulfing him with a one-arm hug. It took all Blaine's mental control not to punch Chandler right there on the face, so he just forced a smile. He turned around, Kurt still on his arms, and slowly walked toward his room. Wait! Chandler shouted. Blaine thought Chandler would apologize for what he said to Kurt, but instead a duffel bag was thrown at their feet. Kurt's clothes, he said without any more explanation. Throw it away, Blaine responded. Huh? Chandler questioned. Throw it, burn it, do whatever you please with it, he said and unlocked his room. Kurt needs a new wardrobe. He practically owns this place if he is dating me. He turned his head towards a confused Chandler. You know, the poor freak who owns this hotel. He smirked. And they both entered the room, leaving a stunned Chandler outside of it. Blaine guided Kurt towards his bed and made him sit at the edge of it. He knelt in front of him and took his hands. Kurt? He asked, but Kurt only scooted towards the headboard and lay down sideways, scrunching his body into a fetal position. He could still see Kurt's body trembling with tears and sobs as he gently laid the blanket over him. And then he proceeded to go to the bathroom and clean himself. What have I gotten myself into? He complained to himself as he showered and reminisced the sins of the train wreck he experienced. He entered his room after changing into a more casual wear and saw Kurt sleeping on the bed. He walked to his desk and opened his laptop, trying to do some leftover work while waiting for Kurt to wake up and discuss the situation they were in. Why did you lie? Surprised by the high-pitched voice coming from the other side of the room, Blaine turned around in his desktop chair and saw a disheveled Kurt sitting on the bed, playing with the right corner of the blanket. I didn't. Knowing what Kurt really meant, he continued. We did have hot and heavy sex last night, he said, voice full of sarcasm. And you did shit on Chandler with me. He cringed at his use of words when he saw Kurt's face fall. He stood up and sat beside Kurt. Look, I'm sorry for what I said earlier about you. Kurt glanced at him confusedly. I guess I really am a she. He was cut off when Blaine scrambled to face him. No, not about that. He shook his head. Well, I'm sorry about that too, but I'm sorry for accusing you of sleeping with me for money. Kurt flinched as the memories of Blaine's outburst came back. No, it was my fault. I was misdirected to your room and should have checked first. I'm sorry. He bowed his head in shame. I really am sorry. Please believe me that his pleadings were disrupted when Blaine took his trembling hands. No, stop berating yourself. I get it. You were sick and that guy who helped you mistook my room for yours. He explained to Kurt and let go of Kurt's hands. And we wouldn't be also in this situation if I weren't too drunk to recognize who you really are. Or aren't. He said shamefully while scratching the back of his neck. But... Kurt tried to reason out, but Blaine waved a hand to his face. Can we just agree that we both made irrational choices and should just forget about last night? It's neither of our faults. It's just an unfortunate coincidence. He asked and moved his right hand in front of Kurt. Kurt stared at it first, but then it broke a small smile and shook Blaine's hand. Deal. He eyed the clasped hands and saw the ring on his finger. Oh God! I totally forgot! You're getting married! I'm so sorry! He panicked again and tried to remove the ring. No, you're not. We've broken up, he explained without glancing at Kurt. This is so much worse. I'm a homewrecker now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He scrunched his forehead and stopped mid-sentence when he realized he didn't know the name of the man in front of him. What's your name? He asked shamefully. Blaine stared at him incredulously for a minute and then started laughing. Blaine Anderson, he answered between the giggles. And no, you really aren't. We broke up yesterday before all this happened. He gestured between them. Kurt nodded in understanding. The dead silence in the room was interrupted when Blaine's stomach growled. I'm hungry. Come on, let's get out of here. He stood up and gestured to Kurt to come along. I need some fresh air. I can't. Kurt shook his head and Blaine raised his eyebrows and looked at Kurt. Come on, I know you're hungry too. He tempted Kurt. I really can't leave this room. He glanced at his shirt, ruined from the sex last night, and looked at Blaine's accusingly. You gave all my clothes away. Blaine, I can't afford all of this, Kurt said while eyeing the clothes being carried by the sales lady. A Walmart shirt is enough for me. These are all designer's clothes. He whispered to Blaine's ears while giving the lady a forced smile. Let's get out of here. He tugged Blaine's arm toward the exit. Don't be ridiculous, Kurt. You wouldn't be paying for it, he said while distractedly texting as he sat in the waiting area of the shop. He stood up and pocketed his phone and gestured for the shop manager to come over. This might take a while, so I'll be leaving him in your hands, okay? He took the black express card from his wallet and gave it to the manager. Here's my card, and everything that suits him shall be charged to me. Blaine, stop! Why are you doing this? Kurt hissed. Blaine sighed. Let me do this as an apology for accusing you. I thought we will forget about it. We shook hands on that deal, Blaine. he said and poked Blaine on the side. I know. I practically called you a prostitute earlier, and I felt guilty about it. He scratched the back of his neck, not looking at Kurt while he explained. Just let me do this, okay? He slipped a note to Kurt's breast pocket, which was actually his shirt. Go to this restaurant after this, and I'll meet you there. I just need to meet a client now, okay? He hurriedly left the shop without letting Kurt make another protest. Blaine was sitting at a table reserved originally for him and Sebastian. He sighed as he toyed with the wine glass in his hands. A moment later, the seat in front of him moved and someone he didn't recognize immediately sat down. Thank you, Kurt muttered under his breath. For everything, he added and bowed his head down. Kurt? Blaine asked disbelievingly. The man seated in front of me was very much different from the crying boy in his arms earlier. Kurt was gorgeous and classy. Blaine got lost in Kurt's beauty for a minute, but returned to reality when Kurt waved a hand in front of me. Huh? Blaine asked. You haven't answered my question from earlier. Kurt repeated. You know, about lying to Chandler? I honestly don't know, he responded and filled it again with a wine glass. Guilt, maybe, or maybe because I felt empathy for you, having experienced my own breakup earlier that day. I really don't know, he shrugged. Thank you, Kurt said softly, and put his hands over Blaine's. He squeezed his hand when Blaine made an eye contact with him. They exchanged small smiles and Kurt took his hand away from him. Is it really true that you own that hotel where we were staying? Kurt asked while waiting for the meal Blaine ordered earlier. No, of course not, Blaine giggled. I just lied to Chandler to make him stay away. Oh. Of course Blaine wouldn't own the hotel, because if he did, he will be staying to a more expensive room, he thought to himself. It's my grandparents' hotel, not mine, Blaine continued. Your grandparents what? Kurt asked between giggles. My grandparents own the hotel, not me, he answered. Kurt stared at Blaine in disbelief. Isn't that the same? No, it's not, because if I was, I would be using the presidential suite and not this crappy regular ones. He wanted to take back what he said, realizing his error. I mean, not that I like the room, it's great compared to other hotels, but I was just used to living there, he added to cover his fault for boasting. Kurt just nodded, not really bothered about Blaine's boastfulness. So, why didn't you live there during your stay here in LA? I mean, if you did, you would have avoided all this drama. Kurt gestured between them. I was banned from it, he muttered embarrassingly. Now, that's the story I wanted to hear. That night went from there. Blaine talked about his experiences during business trips and Kurt about his low-paying job. No one mentioned last night or about their exes. They enjoyed the change of atmosphere, peaceful and serene between them. As they waited for Blaine's car to return from paying the bill, their waiter returned with a black box in his hand. On behalf of the employee of Craig's, we would like to congratulate you for your impending marriage. He put the box at the center of the table and softly clapped his hands. Blaine slipped in his mind that he had reserved the semi-private table for a post-engagement celebration. Kurt, sensing Blaine's embarrassment and frustration, took both of his hands and stared at him lovingly. Thank you, he said to the waiter, but never left Blaine's gaze. I really am fortunate to have my knight in shining armor as my husband. He smiled and took the box and gave it to Blaine. Blaine opened the box and took a golden pocket watch from it. Here, take it, thrusting the watch at Kurt. Don't argue with me and take the watch, because your knight will not always be with you. He let the watch fall from his hands onto Kurt's palm. This will serve as your knight's replacement. Courage, he would always tell you whenever you are having a difficult time. Courage, Kurt repeated, smiling and caressed the golden watch in his hands. They rode the rented car back to the hotel. They were at the hotel's entrance when Blaine turned to Kurt. Are you sure about this? Blaine asked Kurt again. Yeah, I'm sure. He smiled reassuringly. I'll be staying with my high school friend here, who lives in LA. I'll be fine. I needed time to think, and I'll just return later. Maybe a week or so to get my valuables. I just hope Chandler hasn't rolled my passport yet. He chuckled. Sorry about that again. He smiled at Kurt. He probably wouldn't do so, Kurt assured Blaine. Blaine got out of the car and started working towards the entrance door. Blaine! Blaine turned when he heard Kurt shout his name and saw Kurt's head popping out from the window. Thank you for tonight. For everything. Kurt blushed as he ducked his head inside the car. Blaine just grinned widely at the black car that drove off around the corner. Beginning to see the light, Chapter 2, Nights, is finished. See you next week, guys!